Listen up. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Louisville Urban League's radio show and podcast, hosted every week or released every week on Thursdays. You can catch us live on 101.9 FM, WLLV, or 1240 AM at 12 noon from 12 to 12:30, or you can catch us anytime on wherever you find your favorite podcast show. And now you can find us on YouTube. Please subscribe, rate us, review us, let us know what you think of the show. Welcome back to everyone. I am glad. My name is Lyndon Pryor. I am the Interim President and CEO of the Louisville Urban League. Some call me the voice. And I'm just glad to be back this week. This has become a bit of a safe space and safe haven for me. And so I'm excited to be back with you all. I hope and pray that your weeks have been great, and that all is well in and around your lives. This week, I'm super excited because I've got another friend, another big homie, somebody who is doing great work around the city, but somebody who has also been a tremendous benefit to me as a leader in the space and as somebody who is doing this work for and on behalf of Black people, Mr. Dave Christopher Sr., President CEO of AMPed. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, my man, for real. Like I'm sitting there listening to your intro, dude. I'm like, wow. Okay. Like I want to be a radio host too. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. Like,
sounds like I've done this a few weeks.
What'd you say? Like, this guy rehearsed. I don't know, man.
And I didn't. That's the thing. I'm so proud of myself. It isn't really actually rehearsed, man.
It's nice.
It has happened. I appreciate that. Welcome, man. I appreciate you being here. And there's a whole lot of different things. You know, I was just telling you before we got started. Lots of different things we can talk about. All sorts of stuff. And some of it we're going to get deep into. Some of it we're going to just kind of get past or glaze over. But where I want to start is just to make sure that people know you and what your background is and what you are doing over in AMPed. And so give the people kind of the quick and dirty bio on who Dave is and what Dave is doing.
So, quick and dirty bio from the beginning. Little black boy, Gary, Indiana. The project's Concord Common Village. Fast forward to Air Force. Then on to, went to self-taught technology, worked in technology, left there to start my tech company, stumbled into nonprofit. I mean, literally stumbled into nonprofit in 2014. It was so funny, though. And when I say that, I mean that sincerely. Like, before AMPed was even AMPed, I had actually started we built a recording studio for a friend. To help them raise money for their organization. And at the same time, we were having problems with kids or, kids running the streets or whatever. And I always say this every time I get a chance to speak is I don't believe that they're bad kids. I really sincerely don't. I mean, I feel like there are kids that don't have anything to do. And so they're going to find, just like I did when I was a kid, we're going to find something to do. Mm-hmm. And you hear people all the time saying stuff like, well, they need to make better choices. Come on now. Like, you can't say that and then don't give them better choices. So anyway, right. So before AMP, the thing came and I was like, okay, they needed programs for young people. And the word AMP popped in my head, literally, like as I was driving up north to Indianapolis to check on my sister. I was her guardian at the time after she had a stroke, and I was going to meet yet another lawyer about another thing. And it just kind of built from there. And so that's how the music program started. And then we just, from there, as you know, we just met the need. Like, one of the things people say about nonprofit is that, find the thing you do best and do that. And so when I was talking to my board about doing technology training, they were like, wait a minute, we do music, right? We work with kids. Well, I said in 2014 when I created the organization, when I founded it, that it was, and I didn't even know what this meant. I tell people this all the time. I didn't know what it meant. When I said, this is more than about music. The music was simply the tool. I didn't realize it at the time. God knew, right? But I didn't realize it at the time. But so anyways, just kind of, and then led it to the technology workforce development program, to most recently the business incubator. But like I said, when I stumbled into it, I didn't even know about nonprofit. I didn't know what 501c3 was. Susan Berry from the Community Foundation of Louisville came to me one day in 2014 and said, Dave, you need money. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Because at that point, I was literally like taking money from my business account, from my personal account, my business account, from my tech company, and putting it into the nonprofit. I don't even know if I could literally call it a nonprofit because I didn't have a 501c3. And then when they told me that,
You're just an organization.
yeah, I was just trying to do some stuff with the kids, and so and here we are. So
Wow. So let me ask, because I don't think I've ever asked you this. Are you a music guy? Like, why was music the thing? Because I've always known you about tech, and even you're interested in business and your military background, but I've never heard. Does Dave sing? Does Dave play music? Does Dave do any of these things?
Do not want to hear this dude sing. Like my father, it's crazy because my father, my father was a preacher, right? And they referred to him as the singing preacher. Mm-hmm. He was that preacher who would sing before every sermon, and he had a beautiful voice. My brother, the brother's a preacher also. He said he does like follows my father's. Dave, no, not at all. But I refer to myself as a piano school dropout.
Okay.
And so the way I ended up in music really was like I moved here to Louisville from Atlanta to get custody of my son. And he was like 10 at the time, and I was living in Atlanta. Some things went down, and I thought I was going to custody him in Atlanta. That didn't work out. And so my ex was like, hey, if you were closer, maybe. So I went on that word, and I asked my company at the time I was working for, a company called Federal Sound, as a project manager, like, hey, I need to move. And I was like, wherever's going to put me closer so I can see if this will work. And they moved me to Louisville, Kentucky. And my mother passed away not even a week after that. So it was like shortly after that, my mother passed away. I went home for the funeral, and my ex's mother convinced her to let my son come live with me. Wow. By that point, he was 11 years old. And so the way the music thing came about was, like, I was trying to figure out, like, how do I was panicking, honestly, like seriously panicking, like, how am I going to raise this kid by myself? And we were watching this movie called Jeepers Creepers, and I'm laying on the couch, and he's on the floor, and I'm like, my heart's racing, and I said, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? To an 11-year-old. Right? Dude told me later, he said, I knew I had to answer that question because if I didn't, I wouldn't get to watch the rest of the movie. So he said,
scary movie, by the way.
Yeah, right. I don't even remember much about the movie because I was panicked and wasn't even really watching the movie. He said, I want to own my own recording studio and I want to be a producer, a music producer. And I was like, okay. And I literally that's all I needed. I didn't care if you meant that or not. Like I just needed the answer. And so I went to bed that night. And the next morning, my son comes in my room early in the morning, like, Dad, I really want to do that. I'm like, do what? I'm already past that already. And he told me, so I went out and bought 2 books, one on how to start a recording studio and one on how to be a record producer. And I mean, like, I bought thick books. Like, my plan was to, like, I read them first, but I didn't think he'd read them. Right. And so, like, this is how I'll get out of it. Like, I'll read this book, I'll tell you to read it, you won't read it, and we're done. Right. Nah, he read them. He read those books. And so the deal I made with him at the time was, you do your part, I'll do my part. So, like, anything that you want to buy equipment-wise, you have to come up with half, I'll come up with half. He did it. First thing he bought was like a 4-track recorder. He came up with half of it, I came up with half. He got a drum machine, a beat machine. He came half, and I promised him when I moved into a house big enough that I would build him a full-size recording studio. In high school, he was known as the kid that had a full recording studio in his basement. And I ain't talking about like a little room. Like it was a vocal booth, a little sit area, a control room. Like it was serious. Wow. Had all the stuff, right? And he spent all of his time in there. Wow. And so fast forward to 2014, I just thought, like, you know what? I wonder if that would work for, like, because I do. Like I said, I believe the kids are good, right? Will this work for other kids? And so since 2014, and I don't get to do it as much now because we've grown so much I don't get to do it, but like every kid that walked through the door, I would tell them, you do your part, I'll do my part. You do nothing, I do nothing. But that ain't throwing you away. That's saying when you're ready, come on back because I got you. Right.
And I can speak to that, right? Like, so for folks who don't know, I don't know what year was that my nephew was here. So I have an adult nephew who is finding his way or has been finding his way in life. Was real interested in technology, and my wife and I, offered him the opportunity to come spend, some time here just to figure some things out. He was 9 credits away from finishing his college degree, but just didn't seem to have the motivation to get it done. He was just kind of spinning around, and so I invited him up here and said, like, hey, maybe I can connect you with Dave and get you into a program. He went into AMP's technology program, which, I mean, I think truth be told, we can say like he was probably more advanced than what y'all were doing at the time.
Yep.
But, you know, you and other folks there, Monica and others, you know, really said like, all right, here, we can give you more than what the rest of the class is doing. You know, if you're interested, here's the stuff, here's the resources. And Dave promised him, like, you know, if you want to go sit for these exams, all you got to do is you do your part, study, and get ready. I'll make sure that you can sit for the exam. And he's done it, and he is back in Texas now. And I think I've shared with you, he's got a full-time gig. He's doing IT for the district attorney office down there.
Nice.
He's been promoted twice.
Wow.
You know, got full benefits. You know, that's how you've arrived.
You did.
You got full benefits.
Well, you got the insurance.
Exactly. You got the insurance. You know, not just health, but you got health, dental, and
You
vision.
did.
You got all of them.
I get my teeth clean.
All of that sort of stuff. Just got my copay. You know, and he's doing well. And so, you know, when Dave says this about what he's done for his kids and the kids who come through AMP, like, I am a living testimony of that, and my nephew is a living testimony of that type of generosity. And I don't even necessarily, I mean, it is generosity, but it's also just a commitment, right? Like, we're going to make sure that y'all are good, and I'm going to do what I can to help you, you know, succeed in whatever way that I can. And I see that through everything that AMP has done and that AMP is doing. And that is awesome, which kind of makes me want to pivot to, you know, the path. And, you know, we were, you know, I talked about this some with Anthony Smith. So we as Black leaders were on this call during the pandemic. Really, it kind of started out trying to figure out, like, who got toilet paper, right? Like, who got toilet paper, who got paper towels? How do we get these things? We all trying to figure out, how do we pay people who can't come into work? How do we sustain ourselves with grants that we don't know if they're going to pay out because we can't open our doors, or whatever the case may be? And really just trying to triage, you know, not just our organization, but the services that we provide. And in the midst of that, obviously, Breonna Taylor is killed. And so we're dealing with all the civil unrest, you know, our staffs, ourselves, you know, our community out in the street protesting, doing all that kind of work. And then, you know, June 1 happens and David McAtee is killed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And, you know, and that, you know, for that group was, I just remember, and were you on the call that day?
I was on the call. Yep.
Yeah, and I'll ask you.
I was in tears, dog. We were all in tears.
Yeah. How do you remember that moment? Because it's interesting when I talk to different people who were there that day. We all, I think our emotions are all the same, but we all remember it slightly different. So how do you remember that day?
I can't curse on this podcast.
You
obviously,
can. We can beep it if we need.
But
to.
like, but like, I was like, "Fuck this! Like, this is crazy!" Like, it was like, again, y'all for real? Like, y'all ain't done yet? Like, you again? Yeah. And I was, yeah, you got to. So I was like, you got to be kidding me, dude! Like, I was just so. We were, because this was what's crazy about, like, the whole time, right? Like the pandemic and the murders and all the stuff, right? Was that, and I told people this, is like, suddenly we were given permission to cry and curse. Because if you think about it, up until that point, it just wasn't, it wasn't healthy. You couldn't do it because, like, you would literally be crying every day. You'd be cursing every day. And that's not, you can't get nothing done. Like, you should, like, I'm feeling that now. Like, right now, just thinking about that time, was that it was just, God damn, like,
you good.
It was like, come on, y'all. Like when are we done with this? Right. And that's kind of how I felt. Like, I was just mad. I was like mad and sad and angry, like the whole thing, man. It was like crazy. And then because I knew but the beauty of it was I was, if you will, even though we were on a Zoom, the beauty of it was it was like we were in a room together. Yeah. Like, that's how close that group was like, even though I'm sitting in my office in my house, like, and you're sitting in your office at your house, right? It still felt like we were in the same room together. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it was a bunch of screens, but yeah.
Yeah. And you had, you know, Sadiqa, who was out actually at, you know, 26th and Broadway. And so we could hear, for those who weren't down there, and there were several people who were, but for those who weren't, like, to hear it all, it was so, I mean, you're right. It was like we were all standing right there, holding on to each other, and it felt so unbelievable. Right, like you just could not imagine that
we ain't done yet.
In the year 2020, that this is what this was, because it did not feel. It felt intentional, right? Like that's the thing.
And I believe it was, though. I don't know, man. I remember like watching. Me and my son and my daughter and my wife, we were watching some news coverage from the protests or whatever, and this crushed me. This hurt me so bad. My son, who at the time he was like, I guess about 30 or so, 31 or whatever, is sitting on the couch, and I remember him looking at the TV just with his head, because I could feel like his energy, right? And I'm sitting in my chair and I look over at him, and he looked at me. He's like, "Dad, it don't matter. They gonna kill us either way. It doesn't matter what we do." And I'm like, y'all broke my, like, this is what y'all doing to my child, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how much it hurts. It's like, this young man is doing everything he thinks he needs to do. He's following all the rules, if you will, and it does not matter.
Yeah. And there's no way to explain that to him.
None. There was nothing.
Like, what are the words?
There was nothing I could say to him in that moment. Like, all I could do is be angry and figure out, like, and then going back to the path forward, I mean, that was a blessing, man. That was a blessing, because it was a way to, it was interesting how, like, and I still feel this about the path forward now, is like, it was a way to be in a room, a safe space, be angry, be sad, and be productive.
Yeah.
And that you can't always find that. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, if you're so angry that you can't think straight, or you're so sad that you just break down, right? You can't then at the same time be productive. But when you got people like, as you teetering, right, you falling left, you leaning left and right and falling forward about the path. Like you know how you in church when they get the Holy Ghost, somebody come and prop them up. You know what I'm saying? But that's how it felt that's how it felt like for the path forward, man. I mean, I really, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, there's so much about that time and the coming together. And so for folks who don't know, so Dave McAtee is killed June 1. And that group of people, we essentially said, and I can't remember who said it on the call, but somebody was just like, this can't go on. Like this, we not doing this, not another day. Something's got to change. And 18 days later, which is also very crazy to think about, like 18 days later, we have a path forward. We have a document that gets delivered essentially to the city. Yeah, the letter was written to the mayor, and it was for, they were a primary target, but it was for the entire city, the state, to put people on notice that we need to have control of our own destiny, right? Like, we have the ideas, we have the abilities and the wherewithal to do for ourselves what you simply refuse to do for us, despite the fact that you have been elected and chosen and all of these other things. And that, for me, is where you in particular, Dave, stand out, because I think throughout the whole process, so we write the document, and then obviously the real work begins. Like, all right, so how do we actually make sense of this? Right? Like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to actually
another piece of paper?
We to put some people on notice. Like, all right, so what happens if somebody actually gives us some money? What happens if somebody actually, turns to us to do some work? And what I'd want you to speak to is one of the things that that I was struck by very early on, and I don't even know if you remember this, but we were on a call with the same group, but I think it had expanded slightly because we had some allies jump on, and we love our allies. They do this. But we were on a call, and one of those folks piped up and was like, well, maybe we should look to hire a consultant and to bring somebody in. And I don't know if you even remember this, but you went off. You went off on this call about how we ain't got to bring in damn nobody.
Period.
We have done every study. We have done every survey. There are, on that call, folks with all kinds of advanced degrees, literally decades upon decades of experience, people who are doing this work every single day. The only thing we have not had, if I remember you saying correctly, is we have not been given the access and the resources to do the work at the scale in which we need it. Yep. We ain't bringing in nobody, and I don't care what nobody else said. Do you remember saying that?
I do, because I remember it's the trick move. It's the trick move. It's the thing that you do every time. Let's study it. Like I don't need to study this again. Like, are you kidding me? Like we know what it is. Right. And what's crazy is, and I tell like our businesses this, like it always bothers me when I hear business say, "I'm trying to figure this out." Mm-hmm. Like, no, you know what you're doing. You got to figure it out. The fact is, you don't have the money to do it consistently. You don't have the resources you need to do it consistently. You know what you're doing. We've been doing this consistently. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we've been. Think about it. We made chitlins a meal, dog. We the ones, right? Yeah. But the fact is that we had to figure out how to do what we had, and so it never got to the level. And then here's what's crazy when you think about, like, when we did get it to a level that was sustainable, then they bulldozed it down.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or they air bomb it. You dig what I'm saying? Like that's when I say they, I mean the power structure, the people that. Here's what's crazy is. Want to make you believe that it's not that I hate you. It's just that, like, I don't want you're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. No, you hate me.
Right.
Like, you literally hate me. You don't want. It's like you want to be in this position, and you want me in another position, right? It's like like a zero-sum game. I can't have and you have, right? Mm-hmm. When the fact is that, like, back when I did what I did, like my former life, we always said everybody gonna eat. There's enough bread out here for everybody. Mm-hmm. But that's not how people think. And even people now, like, even in our incubator, and I'll say this in our incubator, we have to make sure people understand that this ain't a competition.
Yeah.
Like, there can be more than one bread store. There can be, like, there's a Kroger, there's a Meijer, there's more than one place doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And we can all make money off of it, right?
Right.
But Dad, another, like, who gonna tell me better about me than me?
Absolutely. And I think the other point that was made there was that who gonna tell us how to do it? Because it's not been done anywhere, and I did said this on just the previous podcast, is like what the path is and what the path represents is something that has never been achieved in any city in this country, and I don't know that it's been achieved anywhere else on the face of the planet, in which you have taken a community that has been systemically disinvested in, disenfranchised, discriminated against, and then had that community through equitable processes be elevated to a place of equality and still allow, for all of the other people to still survive and thrive around them, right? Like, so there are certainly places in which, the power structures have been toppled and those people have been done away with. Yes, that exists. Right. And there have certainly been structures where people have maybe gotten parts of their population to, places of true equity and thriving, but places in which where everybody really gets to arrive at the same place, we've never seen it before. Right. Like, it just has not happened. And so for somebody to suggest that, oh yeah, y'all can bring in these other folks because they can show you how to do it, it was, yes, it was dumb. And it was so insulting. But I think what was great about it with you, for me, is that I think, because I was playing facilitator, and I think there were people who started to consider it, right? Like, because I think people,
oh, hell yeah, they do.
They kind of recoiled and was like, well, yeah, maybe we do need to ask. Maybe we do. And it took somebody to step in, with some real firm courage to say, that, hell no, we don't. We got this. We can do this. And, right. And that gave everybody, then everybody's chest puffed out. Then there was a whole bunch of other people who started chiming, you know what, you're right. We can do this. We don't need to do that. We're going to put that to the back burner. Appreciate your suggestion. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being here. However, we're going to do this a different way. Right? Like, we're going to move.
We're not doing it.
So that leads me to another thing, and I talked about this with our brother Anthony a little bit.
My guy.
About courage, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how does, in your mind, how does courage and leadership, how do they work together? And what is the value of one to the other?
I mean, so one thing I say is, like, I think, courage is one thing, but, like, that doesn't mean that you're not fearful, that you're not afraid. Because, like, I think as a leader, if you're not afraid, you got a problem. Like you don't know what you're really facing, right? If you're not afraid, but then you have to have the courage to push past what you're afraid of, and that's kind of how that works together. But for me, if you're asking me as a leader, my strength comes in to play when with the statement simply that I don't answer to anybody but God. I'm not worried about what you think about. I'm not worried about what you have or what you don't have. Like what I like. People. It's funny because I say this all the time. It's like people will say, what God has for me is for me, and then they don't act like it. You know what I'm saying? then you start trying to chase down the person that's somehow gonna give you what you need. No, God will provide what you need.
Right.
Like literally, like I can tell you that with the work we've done since 2014, it's just my life in general, right? Is that what I needed, God always brought to me. And by that, I don't mean I stood by waiting, right? I moved as I felt like God would want me to move, right? But then those opportunities, because I tell people if I had my way, I'd be dead or in jail. You know what I'm saying? Like I literally did everything I could to ruin my life. God was like, no, I got something different. Like so. You can want to do that. You can try to do that, or maybe unconsciously you try to do that, right? Or subconsciously you try to do that,
right?
But that's not what I have for you,
right?
And when you're willing to let it be my will, so when I walk into a room, I'm good, because what I'm supposed to have, I'm gonna have.
Yeah, it's gonna come regardless.
Yeah.
So because one of the things you just said in there was it's not about also just not standing still and waiting on it, right?
Right.
Like you use your hands and you do what you can with what's in front of you and doing the work. And it's interesting because when I had Cynthia on, our director for our Center for Entrepreneurship, we obviously talked a little bit about the incubator, and and she said, she's like, hey, now we love Dave and the incubator, but we tell people all the time that is not for the faint of heart, right?
Like absolutely, it's not.
So
ask the participants.
That ain't just one of those things that you get in and you gonna make it. And so tell the folks, pivoting to RTBI and what you're doing over there. What is that experience like? Like, kind of what is it? Because, folks are going to want to know. But what is it, and what's that experience like, and what is the expectation you have for those young entrepreneurs or old entrepreneurs?
Young and old. Yeah, no, all the way 60, 60-something years old. I think it's probably the oldest person in the thing. But let me start with what it's not. It's not what you're used to in the sense that there's this program you go to, you check these boxes, and then somebody hands you a check. That's what it's not. And I want to say that and be clear about that because I was just having a conversation with one of the graduates just today before I came over here, and they were talking about they were saying people were like, well, why didn't you? It's like you have an opportunity to do a funding request toward the third quarter, whatever, for things you might need, and you may or may not get it, depending on what we believe makes sense for you to have. We're gonna say yes or no. And he said that he never asked for anything, and people were like, why not? He said because the knowledge that I got was way more than anything that they could have paid for. That's what it's about. So the incubator is really about building that foundational structure, right? So that when you do get funding, when the money comes to you, you know what you're doing with it. That's the thing. I think we think we can solve all the problems with the money, right? And get this is through trial and error because we've done programs before. We had a technology program when your brother-in-law was going through the program. It was like we paid people to go through the program, and it was interesting because what we realized is you can't throw money at it. Even we did some sort of entrepreneurship stuff at the time. Me and a friend of mine actually paid 3 people that we paid their bills for 6 months, every single bill they had for 6 months, because somebody did that for me. Paid every single bill. Literally every bill. If you smoke, whatever you spend money on, we paid that bill, like your clothes, like anything, for 6 months, so that you could focus on a business, right? What we realized that didn't work. Because those people weren't ready to create a business. My thought, because it worked for me, but if you think about it, I was a business person already. I already had the foundation of how to grow, and I was really just trying to grow a business, right? And so this person literally came to me every month with a bank envelope full of cash that covered all my bills for that month, and just plopped it on the desk. And in that 6 months, I generated probably like $150,000, $200,000 in additional revenue because my mind was free. I was paying my bills, but my mind was free because this money was I didn't have to even think about it, right? And we tried that. So what you get in the incubator, and it's literally like when I came in, it was through the path forward. It was like they really started there because, again, I was just so angry about everything that was going on, and I saw these opportunities coming in terms of funding. You know, folks were starting to feel guilty, and they were starting to invest in like, you know, black businesses and black things, and I was like, okay, my thought was, because I think I'm kind of smart in that I realized that this isn't going to last forever. Mm-hmm. Like at some point they're going to go back to business as usual. So my thinking was, I'm going to take what I have here and do whatever I can to create something you can't take back. Mm-hmm. We are in our third year of the business incubator. Mm. We graduated class of 21, class of 22, and now we're sitting on class of 23, and we still kicking. Through our partnership with the Louisville Urban League and the Center for Entrepreneurship, we've helped hundreds of businesses, if not thousands, right? Because we had 900 people on the waiting list. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We took 136 applications to be able to narrow it down to 36 businesses. Mm-hmm. So there was no shortage of like people. And so it's everything that you need to create and grow your business. So like the one thing I had said when I came with the idea, and it sort of started with me just being angry, right? I wasn't even really writing this document to do anything with it other than to just like get these ideas out of my head about like on paper about what it would take for a black business to be successful, right? Mm-hmm. And I just started typing, and it was like 5 pages. Then I'm like, it's 10 pages. Then now it's like 70. And I remember sending it out to people, not for like funding, but like, tell me where the hole is. Like, what's wrong with this document? What's wrong with this thing I'm telling you? And don't just tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me how to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. But what I realized they weren't doing that. Right. They were actually sending it on to people, right? So somebody called me. He was like, "Hey, the Rockefeller Foundation saw your document, and they was wondering if you would be willing to talk to them about funding it." Yeah, I guess. I mean, I hadn't got there yet, but I'll take it. Young Brands, Brown Forman, Humana, like all these folks. And when I talk about like what God has for you is for you, mm-hmm. like you've seen our wall, like those people literally came to us or came to me and said, "Hey, I want to invest in this," because I had put together a comprehensive plan of success, right? Like all the things you needed. Like, and I tell people it came from like everything that I thought I needed or wish I had when I started my first business or any of my businesses, right? Mm-hmm. And it was everything. It was access to fair capital. It was reliable networks. It was education, that foundational education. And the cool thing about the education we give, it's not like we tell you some stuff we think we know and then we print out a certificate on the printer. No, these are from colleges and universities, University of Illinois, University of Virginia, Wharton School of Business, on entrepreneurship, understanding accounting, like all those things. You have full year access to an accountant because you messed the money up.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, I know that personally. I was like $48,000 in tax debt, blessed that I could make my way through that, right? But like everybody ain't doing that. Everybody can't, you know, that would crush most, right? Mm-hmm. Access to mental health, because I realized myself, whether I realized it at the time, I was dealing with a lot of trauma. And I tell people this, and I don't say that this is wrong, but I'm just saying this is my path. To this day, I've never borrowed money from a bank for any of my businesses. And not because I couldn't, because I didn't trust it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so like we're doing things around that, working with the Urban League and El Home and some other folks, right, on creating a $3 million loan guarantee fund, right, so that we can get people fair access to fair capital and the right amounts of capital, right? So it's just a whole bunch of, I mean, I don't know if we have time for like all of it, but like it's like everything, like accounting, marketing, legal, mental health, one-on-one coaching, all the stuff.
All the things. And I mean, I think that's what I love. Like, I mean, we're doing a lot of good work through the path, and there's a lot more to do. But I love the black business work, and it's and why so much. And I talk about this when I talk with Cynthia, but I will say it as often as I can, is because we have built and are continuing to build our own ecosystem, right? Like, and so when you talk about not being able to trust banks, and what that is, like there is a whole history, right? Like there's a whole path of research around, you know, black folks not being able to get loans or not being able to get loans in the right ways, and all of the different types of things that happen, as well as access to other technical assistance that an entrepreneur would normally need. And what we did through the path and what you've done has essentially said, like, you know what? I ain't gonna worry about changing what y'all doing over there. We're just gonna build it ourselves. And we have put that entire thing together, and it's working, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that for me is like the beauty of this, because if there is one clear image of what the path is and can be and will be, it is in that space right now. Because I think while certainly there's a lot more to be done, we can clearly see what it means for us to truly wrap ourselves around an idea and be able to not only build it, but scale it and fund it, and begin to move that thing. And I mean, and that is absolutely, thanks to the work that you and AMPT have put into this. Like, there is no ecosystem in this work without you all as very much a centerpiece in that. We've got lots of other partners in this as well, and not all Black folks as well.
Right.
I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
important. Like, there are folks who have loved on this idea and who are for this movement and who have contributed in huge ways to see this come to fruition, and who are still planning to do remarkable things. And so it's just beautiful, right? Like, I am so in love with what we are doing in that space.
And what I add to that too is that I think, as we came along, right, from 2021 to like 2020, 2021, first of all, we put like millions of dollars into like a year. Like, say, it's somewhere around $3 million we spend on that program every year. And what's interesting is that as we went on, those banks that we talked about, like, they're now coming in and saying, hey, look, we get it. Like, we want to see how we can do things differently. How do we do things differently? How do we make it easier? Because this is what I tell people, like, what I understand as a business person myself is, and me and Tammy York Day from CEOC, we talk about this, like, when capital meets compassion, right? And what we mean by that is, as a business person, I understand that there has to be a financial return on your investment, right? So there's some things that I'm not saying that you shouldn't, as a business owner, you want to make money, got that part. But what you can do also in that same frame of mind is you can also lift people out of poverty by changing some of those systems. Like, so like it's funny because I remember, like, we were in a call, and I don't remember this call. We were on a call one time about some funding that was supposed to come from the city or whatever. And so we were like, hey, can we funnel this, make sure this money goes to West Louisville? And they said, well, yeah, we have to prove that, that this is a disadvantaged community or whatever. And like, what? Like okay, so what do you need to prove that? They said, well, we have to do a study or whatever. It's like, well, there's studies that have been done. Do you remember when they said to us, well, no, we have to get a new one?
Yes.
And I said, a new one for what? They said, well, because the requirements are that we have a new one. I said, and I remember, because I think I asked this question, like, so who made the requirements? Where did that come from? Well, we made the requirements. Then change it. Change the requirement, right? Like, that's dumb. Yes. Like, so basically, you're going to spend some money to determine what you already know. And so, like, but I think as we've gone, and I don't think, because I'm not one of them people that believe in, like, haters. Like, I hear people talking like they hate on, like, I think that's dumb. Nobody's thinking about you like that. Like, like you ain't really moving it, like, you ain't really getting down like that for people to be like trying to stop you. You stopping yourself. Dion said that the other night. He's like, Prime, he said that the other night, and it's true. Like, people 9 times out of 10, it's you. But anyway, but I think those banks, those corporations, those foundations, those folks are coming. Now they've slowed down like I expected them to, right? Because they have to, like, even Rockefeller Foundation, they pivoted to like environment, right? And so, like, people have their little pillars or whatever. But what's interesting about, and I'll just use them as an example, right? Even though they pivoted to environmental, the project manager that we have for Rockefeller, because we created relationships with her, that we still got money from them. And I think that's what, and I'll just say that I think that I'm saying that to say that that's important when you're doing this work, right? Is this about relationships? It's not about, just like when we talk about, we can't just throw money at it. You have to, like, you and I we'll do whatever we need to do for each other because we have a relationship. Right. You're going to talk about me just out there when I was with Sadiq, I use her as an example. Like, I remember there was a picture when I was speaking at the Urban League for something. I don't remember what it was. I didn't see the picture till later. Somebody had took it, like, of me standing there speaking. It was funny. It had to do with the Center. It was the launch of the Center for Entrepreneurship. And I was speaking, and Sadiq was standing behind me, and I saw that picture later, and I just remember thinking how she was looking at me, like, from behind. Like, I didn't see her, but the look on her face was like, I love this man. I love, you know what I mean? Like, that was family. And I remember making a post saying, it's a beautiful thing to have people looking out for you behind your back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's what relationships do. And I think that's how we get to where we need to get to, is that we got to get out of this transactional frame of mind and say, because I tell people I don't take money from everybody. Mm-hmm. You know that, right? Because I need, like, when you walk in the room, you got to impress me as much as you think I have to impress you.
Right.
Like, I need to know whether you, like, we gonna do this, we just doing this just because you was write a check and you gonna take some pictures, or are we doing this because we partners?
Yeah. Because, I mean, the people matter, Dave. Like, I think that is, as I've done this work and, been here in Louisville and kind of gotten entrenched in this, I think that is one of the things that I have come to the realization more so than anything is, like, how important not just relationships matter, but also just the comportment of the people in this, right? Like, it's not just about how smart somebody is or, what skill set they bring to the table or what educational background they may have. Like, their capacity to do the work on paper, right? That's one thing. Mm-hmm. And that's important. And, and I always share, like, it's a lot of people, because I think nonprofits sometimes get shunned for this. They think, like, you just got folks who just walked in here just doing this, like, making it up as we go along, right. as if we
are not skilled.
As if we ain't skilled, got tons of education and all that. So we got that, right? Like, so that is absolutely important. But at the same time, it's like who those people are, how those people think, how they feel about the work, how they feel about the movement, like, all that stuff really does actually matter to the success of it all. And if we can't vibe in that way, then it don't really matter how smart you are or what your experience is. Like, a lot of times it just ain't gonna work, because you gotta have people who are in this for all the right reasons and who are trying to do this work in ways that are compatible with the other people who are trying to do this work. And so, like, that point, because I think you've made that a lot about, particularly around the path and the work that we've done. I mean, even when we were in D.C., with Jeffrey Cannon and his folks, it was one of those things where I think we had a moment, we were all sitting together, a lot of the folks around the table, and it was like, no, this is family.
We friends,
like this, we are friends. We do this for real. Like, we do this because, like, it means something to us beyond, whatever paycheck we get or whatever, accolades that may come. Like this is who we are.
Because we weren't picked to sit at the table because we were sent on a trip together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you saw around the room, like, oh yeah, we sit together because we work in the same office. Like, okay, I don't really like her, but, I'm sitting. You know what I mean? Like, but that was different. And one thing I want to hit real quick is that, because I'm reading this book on leadership, and what you were describing is, like, those skill sets and stuff that you have is what we would refer to as horizontal leadership, right? But then there's that vertical leadership that people don't think about, right? So you got all the skills and all the tools you need to, like, do this thing, right? But then do you have those social skills that carry that empathy, like all those things that they that are vertical versus horizontal?
Right.
That's the difference. And if you ask me, and I say this in our organization, right, in our music program and in all of our programs, I can teach you to do some stuff, but I can't teach you how to care.
Right.
And so that's what I'm looking for first. That's why, like, people ask, like, how do you guys get so much done with such a small staff of people, right? It's not because we're pretty small, right? Mm-hmm. But because everybody cares. Well, I would hope that there probably maybe one slipping by me or something, but for the most part, it's real, right?
It happens.
It happens, right? Yeah. So, but for the most part, everybody that works for us cares. Like, we do what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's like, okay, well, I don't know. I don't, like, it's, and I get it. It's 5 o'clock, go home. Like, I'm big on work-life balance.
Right.
Like, anybody, like, I don't do stuff after work, likely. I mean, it's got to be something that really is, and I don't call me on the weekend because I'm not doing anything on the weekend. That's why I told you what I told you earlier.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Like, protect your mind.
Mm-hmm. So, as we begin to wrap up, but I guess there are a couple questions I have. One is, in your mind, because I know you're always thinking about this big picture and long term. When you think about the path, so even beyond, like, the black business work, but the path, where do we go from here? How do you see what's the next hurdle for us to climb, or obstacle for us to start, chipping away at? Like, what's next?
So I'll start with the last thing you said about the hurdles and the obstacles. My father, who was disabled when I was a kid, used to tell us this: we know what the problem is. Look beyond that for the solution. So when you say hurdles or obstacles, I'm not focused on the hurdles or the obstacles. We know what the situation is. We know we have to do it. So like when we look at like workforce development, we look at entrepreneurship, and we look at like housing and those things that are in the path forward document, right? Is that we have to ask the folks, we have to ask the question of the folks that are coming along with us: are they sincere about solving this problem, or are they trying to? And it's okay you have to earn from it. Like you should make a living and all those things. That's not what I'm saying. But like, is this about you and what you get out of this, or is this about us? Right? Is it really about us? I mean, and I have to plug this, is like we're getting ready to build this 18,000 square foot technology training center at 17th and Market. That's about us. That's about getting Black and brown folks into technology, because when we talk about like how do we build up this community, that ecosystem you were talking about is economic empower ownership equals independence, right? Mm-hmm. And so the economic empowerment is like we have jobs that pay above a living wage, so that we can then invest in ourselves, right? So we can bring in businesses in the community, because those businesses can be supported. Because a lot of times we want to act like businesses won't come into the community, and that's malicious, when it's not always malicious. As a business person, I can't be somewhere where I can't make a living, right? So I can't open up a store in a place where nobody has resources to pay for the things I have in my store. So if we're being honest about it, right, then what we need to do is we need to really make people understand it really is about the money.
Yeah.
It really is. You got to put money in people's pockets. So that's the economic development, right? But then also the business ownership, that's the generational thing, right? That's where we learn what we need to learn. So I don't necessarily see, because I don't see the obstacles other than the systems that we need. And so Assistant Secretary Castillo, we got to meet with her like maybe a week or so ago, and she pushed back on my whole economic empowerment, ownership, and it equals independence. She said, Dave, I pushed back on the independence piece, and it made sense, because this is what she said. It made real sense to me, is if you think that way, that you need to be independent, then you change it for you. The system stays the same. So the work that you do in policy is what we want to do. I mean, I sincerely started thinking about that. As AMP has to have a part of us that does policy work, because I can make it good for us at this table, right, yeah, or us here in Louisville. But if I don't affect any policy, like we went in the banking system, right? When you talk about, like, because I remember talking to Chase Bank about some of the stuff that had come out in the news about some racist things they had done, and I remember one of the people said, "Well, I'm not racist." I said, "Get credit. I don't know you well enough to know you're not racist. I don't know you like that. I know that your bank at the time has racist systems, right? Right. And so I'm saying we need to fix that. Mm-hmm. And so I don't necessarily see the obstacles. I think we know what we need to do. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't say, like, I know we know what those obstacles are. We know what those hurdles are, and the biggest part of it is a lot of the systems and policies and stuff that we need to change, things we need to put in place. But here's the biggest part of it is getting us economically strong enough, right, and having enough ownership of things to then make our voices heard. Because that's the truth, right? I don't care you can protest all you want to. If you broke, they're gonna just wait you out.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
Like okay, they'll move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. So as we end, I want you to get some shine and talk about what you were doing. So you just mentioned 17th Market and what's coming. Tell the people what's happening there, what are you building, and how great is it going to be?
Man, I pray that it'll be amazing. I mean, like, for real. No, I mean, it's a 18,000 square foot technology training center with free childcare. It'll have
free childcare.
Free childcare, yeah, because you know, we talk about like hurdles. I mean, like obstacles and stuff, right? That's one of those things, right? Like you got to, and you know, everything that we do in AMP is all about family anyway. That's so right. Like that was like sort of a natural thing. Co-working space, that's on the first floor. Child care center, co-working space, a cafe, like a cold cafe. We're looking at trying to bring, I won't say the name, but we're trying to bring like some sort of grocery store in there. We got additional land that we're going to build on with a green space and a beautiful playground and all that. The second floor will be a 4,000 square foot training center with offices that will let some people in the community come in and use those offices so that we have some stuff centralized so people come into that one space. On the third floor will be a 4,000 square foot event space, a conference area, like all this stuff. But and then we just bought, like last year we bought the building at 25th and Broadway, the Amped Innovation Center. Right now we've got the University of Louisville and JCPS are our tenants. JCPS put their very first student learning center in there. So they've got like about 15,000 square feet of the space. It's a 40,000 square foot building. Wow. And we're actually the rest of it will be a arts business incubator. So an incubator specifically for visual and performing artists. They have 24-hour access to a space to create, and they'll have a beautiful space we call it a show space, where they can have events. We're already talking to people about bringing artists from out of town, from outside of Louisville to do shows there, like sort of a West Louisville speed art museum.
Wow.
Working with some folks on that. So, and then of course, I promise, they're not here, so they can't laugh at me. But like every time I say, okay, that's it, that's the last thing we're gonna do. Everybody laughs because they know. I drive in my car with the radio off, so I'm thinking about stuff all the time. But we just like to answer that question is like we're literally just trying to like make the playing field as level as possible, and I think the time is right. You know what I'm saying? And I think the more that we do, the more people understand this. We just gotta have honest brokers, man. We gotta have even people that look like us being honest about what it is they want to do and not just riding this money train. Because when the money first came out, you know this. Yep. We were in meetings, man. Where like, because I think because I ain't good at like keeping my mouth shut. Like I'm really not. I mean, and not in a bad way. I just like I don't ever want to upset anybody or like, you know what I'm saying. I'm never that guy. But like you're in the room because there's money in the room, and all you're trying to figure out is how do you get a piece of it. But you're not, because I remember like in the one, like, I'm just like, look, get off the call if you need all these answers. That's like, because I remember that's like, we family. Why you acting like we're not family?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
well, let me just say this, man. What y'all are doing is phenomenal over in AMP. It always has been, and to see it grow, and just in the short stint that I've been here, it's been just amazing to watch. And then, as I said at the top, man, like to have you as a friend and a resource, and somebody that I can, ping and bounce things off of, and to just, really vibe with around how do we do this work and how do we go further, faster, has truly been a blessing for me as a leader, and as just somebody who's invested in Black people and in this community. And so thank you for everything that you've done. Obviously, thank you for your partnership with the league, because, I mean, as far as we've come over the past, 7-8 years, some of that is absolutely attributable to you and the support that you've been able to give to us and the ways in which you've pushed us as an organization. And so thank you so much for that, brother. And I just wish you nothing but continued success and wellness and anything, anything that the league can do.
Can I say this real quick? Yeah. Way back when, I tell people, don't discredit or don't underestimate the power of people supporting you, telling you how much they love you, how much they believe in you, and how much that means. You think everybody got to throw dollars at it, but like when y'all say, okay, to validate what we trying to do, like even when we was like trying to figure out how to make payroll, you know what I'm saying? Like trying to figure out like how to get all the things, right? All the things that led to where we are now, right? A lot of that happened because I knew I had people around me that wasn't gonna let me fall. It wasn't about like how do I get more money? It's like I know these people believe in me, they're gonna support me, and I'm in. So I appreciate y'all for real.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the show for today. Thank you for joining us here on Listen Up, Louisville Urban League's radio show and podcast. Remember, you can join us every week on Thursday from 12 to 12:30 on 101.9 FM, WLLV, or 1240 AM, or find us anytime wherever you get your podcast. We look forward to seeing you. Hey, just as a reminder, we got gala tickets that are available. Y'all come out and party with us for the Derby Gala on May 3rd. We got Joe, Drew Hill, and Stokely. It is going to be a fun night. So go ahead and get y'all's tickets now. But Take care of yourselves, Louisville, and we will see you next week.
The Louisville Urban League Derby Gala is happening May 3rd, featuring musical guests Joe, Drew Hill, and Stokely. Listen Up listeners can win a pair of tickets to the show. All you have to do is tune in weekly to the Listen Up radio show, listen for the contest keyword, then email giveaway at lul.org with your name, phone number, and keyword. Contest runs from March 2nd through April 15th, 2023. One entry per person per episode, with 7 chances to win. The contest is open to adults 18 and up. This week's keyword is bell hooks.
The Louisville Urban League wants to make sure that every student thrives academically, and to make that possible, the League is offering free intensive tutoring to JCPS students who qualify. Kindergarten through 12th grade students can receive expert help in reading, math, and ACT prep. Kids like me deserve every opportunity to succeed and to reach our greatest potential. Sign your student up today. To learn more, visit lul.org or call 502-585-4622.